Figure 4.6 GradeBook.java. We're now going to enhance the GradeBook class to enable the program to input 10 grades from the user and calculate the class average for those 10 grades. Now in this example, all of that work will be performed by a new method we define inside of class GradeBook. That method name is determineClassAverage down here at line 37. The rest of the class, however, is the same as the last version we saw back in the prior lesson. The class still has an instance variable to represent the course name. It's got a constructor here at line 11 through line 14 that enables us to initialize the course name. We provide both the set and the get method to enable client code to change and obtain the value of the course name respectively. And finally, we have our display message method, which is going to output our welcome message that includes the course name. Now you may be wondering why we're not storing the individual grades inside of the gradebook back up here along with the course name. In reality, it does make sense to do that. However, we're going to wait to do that until we introduce the concept of arrays in Java, at which point we'll store an array of grades and use that not only to calculate the class average, but also to figure out things like the highest and lowest grade on a given exam. Now let's take a look at our determineClassAverage method. In the method here at line 40, we've defined a scanner object that's going to allow us to read from the standard input. And at lines 42 through 45, we've got several local variables declared. Now, local variables are not initialized in Java, so you must initialize them before you use them, especially if you want to do things like a calculation. So for example, the integer called total here at line 42, which is going to store the total of all the exam results, is initialized down here at line 48 to the value 0. In fact, we could have simply taken the equals 0 from line 48 and placed it back here at line 42, where you now see the cursor blinking, so that we both declare and initialize the variable at the same time. Grade counter at line 43 will keep track of which grade we're inputting at a given time, and similarly that variable is initialized down here at line 49 to the value 1, indicating that we're about to read in the first grade. Once we read in a grade, we'll place it into the variable grade so that we have a variable containing the value that we can use in a calculation, and then eventually we will calculate the average and store it in the integer variable average. Now when you do integer arithmetic, you always get integer results. In a subsequent example, we'll use floating point values so that we can calculate a more precise class average. So after we've initialized the total and the grade counter, we have a loop here at lines 52 through 58 that's going to keep iterating as long as our grade counter variable is less than or equal to 10. And each time through the loop, we're going to print out the prompt saying to the user that they should enter the grade. After we do so, we're going to read in the grade using the scanner object called input to read the next integer and store it in the variable grade. We'll then add that grade to the total, and then we will add 1 to the grade counter to indicate that we're about to read the next grade. And this, of course, eventually is going to cause grade counter to become greater than 10, at which point this loop will terminate. After we do our 10 iterations and grade counter becomes 11, the loop will terminate and we'll calculate the class average. Again, this is an integer called total divided by the integer literal 10, and that's going to yield an integer result that truncates the floating point part of the average. We'll store that value in the variable average and then display our results down here at lines 64 and 65. First we'll display the total of all the grades, then we'll display the average, and notice once again the use of %d as a placeholder for an integer. We've now seen %d for integers, %f for floating point numbers, and %s for strings. Now we'll need to test this to make sure that it's working, so once again we've provided a gradebook test class, and you'll notice that main is actually a pretty straightforward set of 3 statements. In lines 10 and 11, we have the statement that creates our new gradebook object and initializes its course name to CS 101 Introduction to Java Programming. We assign that new gradebook to the variable myGradebook. And then we simply tell the gradebook to display its message, which contains the welcome message and the gradebook name. and then we tell the gradebook to determine the class average. Now, it's not uncommon in an object-oriented program to have a lot of this straight line code where it's just statement, statement, statement executing in sequence inside of a given method, and you don't see any logic in that given method. So there's no program logic here other than execute this statement, then execute this statement, then execute this statement in sequence. All of the logic of determining the class average in this case is wrapped up in the determine class average method of the gradebook class, and we simply delegate the duty of calculating that and obtaining the values needed to the gradebook class itself. In other examples, we'll make this class more elaborate, but for now we're building the class average functionality into a single method, and eventually we'll store the actual data for the grades inside of our gradebook objects.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than live lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.